Somewhere in Dallas, amidst the indifferent glow of city lights, a man is seeking solace in a Honda Civic, his temporary sanctuary. He flew 11 hours to get here. He sold his motorcycle 3 months ago to cover the ticket. He searched every hotel app, every booking platform, every last-minute deal aggregator, and found nothing under $500 a night. So tonight, the night before his team plays on the grandest stage in world football, he is reclined in a back seat, national team scarf pulled over his shoulders like a blanket, eating gas station food in a Walmart parking lot. This is the 2026 FIFA World Cup. 4 years ago, FIFA walked to a podium and made a promise. 3 nations, 16 cities, 104 matches. They used soaring words: democratic for the fans, the people's tournament, empty echoes as it turned out, and the world, desperate, loyal, beautifully irrational as football fans always are, believed every word. Moroccan supporters in Casablanca spent months skipping lunches and double shifting at work. Argentine families in Buenos Aires sold furniture, delayed weddings, pulled kids out of summer camps. Working-class fans from Lyon, from Lagos, from Lima, they all made the same quiet, sacred calculation: this is the one. This is finally our tournament. But here is what FIFA forgot to mention at that podium. By the time those fans went to buy their tickets, officially, legally, through FIFA's own platform, the prices had already detonated. Not for the final, not for a semifinal. Imagine a forgettable 1-all draw in an air-conditioned stadium in Atlanta. For a Category 2, upper tier, slightly off-center seat, the price tag was a staggering $3,000. And here is the part that makes it genuinely difficult to breathe. Thousands of those exact seats in stadium after stadium across this tournament have sat completely, photographically, embarrassingly empty. Not because nobody wanted them, because the people who wanted them, the ones who tattooed their club badge on their forearms, the ones who know every chant, every superstition, every ritual, simply could not afford what FIFA's pricing model decided they were worth. This is the story of how the most anticipated football tournament on American soil became, for the people who love this sport most, the most disappointing commercialization in its history. And it didn't happen by accident. It happened by design, line by line, in the code of a dynamic pricing system that treated football tickets like airline seats during a hurricane evacuation. They replaced a model designed to include people with a model designed to price people out. The beautiful game came to the richest country on earth, and somewhere in that transaction it forgot who it belonged to. The people who wanted to be here, who needed to be here, were stopped, not by indifference but by architecture. By walls they couldn't see until they ran into them. Walls made of numbers, of geography, of stamps on passport pages. Let's talk about the pricing engine. Because what happened to ticket costs at this World Cup wasn't chaos. It wasn't a market anomaly. It wasn't even greed in the traditional human sense of the word. No, it was something colder. Something that doesn't sleep, doesn't feel, and doesn't register the 8 months a Moroccan father of 3 spent saving for this single cherished moment. FIFA, for this tournament, partnered with dynamic pricing platforms, the same architecture that powers airline seat pricing, hotel surge models, and concert ticket scalping. The logic is simple and merciless. The moment 1 million people search for a ticket simultaneously, the code reads that as demand. And demand, in this system, is not an invitation to serve more people. It is an instruction to extract more money from the same people. In Brazil, 2014, FIFA offered Category 4 tickets to local residents for under $20. A Brazilian construction worker could take his son to a World Cup match for the price of a bus ride and a meal. In Russia, 2018, international visitors could access group stage seats for $105. Flat rate, capped, protected from speculation. FIFA killed that system for 2026, quietly, without a press conference, without an apology, but the pricing model was only the first wall. The second wall is geographical. Qatar 2022 was 1,500 square miles, every stadium reachable by metro. Germany 2006 had a high-speed rail network connecting every host city in under 3 hours. The 2026 World Cup spans 3 countries and a distance wider than the Atlantic Ocean: Toronto to Miami, Vancouver to Dallas, Kansas City to Guadalajara. There are no high-speed trains. There is one option only: domestic flights, surged by 400% above baseline. So run the full calculation. The ticket was $3,000. The flight is $400. The hotel is $500 per night. The most accessible World Cup in history carries a minimum spend for a genuine traveling supporter following their team through the group stage of somewhere between $8,000 and $15,000. And somewhere in a Walmart parking lot in Dallas, the man in the Honda Civic already knew all of this. He just loved his team too much to let it stop him. He woke up at 6 in the morning to the sound of a delivery truck reversing into the Walmart loading bay. The Honda Civic's windows had fogged over completely during the night. He wiped a circle clear with the sleeve of his national team jersey, the same one he'd been wearing for 3 days, and looked out at a Dallas morning that didn't know or care that the World Cup was happening 40 minutes away. Trucks moving, employees clocking in, a parking lot doing what parking lots do. He had one match ticket, upper tier, row 31 of 32, one row from the absolute ceiling of the stadium. That ticket, the worst in the building by every corporate metric, Sears, was everything. It was the motorcycle, it was the 11-hour flight, it was the scarf and the back seat and the gas station food, it was the threshold. And he crossed it. There is a particular kind of heartbreak that doesn't announce itself loudly. It comes quietly, in a government building, under fluorescent lighting, at a consulate window. It arrives in the form of a single stamped word on a passport application: rejected. A supporter in Casablanca who booked his ticket in February at a steeply inflated price and then walked into the American consulate in April with a folder of bank statements, employment letters, and match tickets. A man who had spent $4,000 before he even touched American soil, and just like that, $4,000, a lifetime's anticipation, condensed into a folder of useless documents gathering dust on a kitchen table in Casablanca. This was not an isolated incident, it was a pattern. Embassy appointment wait times in some cities stretched beyond 400 days. 400 days. The tournament lasts 39. The machinery of border security processing football fans like variables in a threat assessment model rather than human beings who had spent their life savings to be here. Inside those stadiums that these fans never reached, their absence created something else entirely. The lower bowl, the seats closest to the pitch, the seats that define the atmosphere of a match, filled with corporate hospitality guests who couldn't have told you the offside rule 20 minutes before kickoff. Not a roar, but a murmur. Not a vibrant terrace, but a sterile lounge. And then there were the allies, the ones who did make it through, who found each other in the upper tiers, who carried the chants upward into the acoustically indifferent roof and kept them alive. Strangers from the same dream, pressed together in row 31, enemies of no one except the system that tried to make them feel small. He couldn't see the players' faces from up there. The ball, at certain angles, disappeared against the crowd on the far side. By every metric the corporate hospitality industry uses to grade a match experience, sightlines, seat comfort, proximity to the pitch, his ticket was the worst in the building. Below him, the lower bowl sat half alive. Ticket holders who had come for the spectacle, not the sport. The stadium was magnificent, climate-controlled, broadcast-perfect, and almost entirely without soul. But in row 31, something was building. The kind of pressure that has nowhere to go except up. 3 days in a car, 11 hours on a plane, a motorcycle sold, a scarf worn like armor, a man who had given everything to be here and was now finally here. Yet despite every corporate metric, it was also almost certainly the best seat in the entire stadium. Because when his country scored, a low drive into the bottom corner 63 minutes in, the man from the Honda Civic did not politely applaud. He stood up and screamed from somewhere so deep in his chest that people 3 rows away physically turned to look at him. He screamed until the sound ceased to be language, transforming into something primal, something older than words themselves. He grabbed the stranger next to him and a man he had never met, whose name he still doesn't know, and they held each other like brothers at a funeral and at a wedding simultaneously. Every wall the system had built, the pricing algorithm, the consulate window, the $500 hotel room, the Walmart parking lot, collapsed in that moment into a single irreducible human sound. This was the ordeal, and he survived it by feeling it completely. He brought Casablanca to Dallas. He brought the terraces of Montevideo and the street corners of Lagos, all of it compressed into one screaming man in row 31, refusing to let the sterile architecture of a billion-dollar stadium tell him how to feel about football. FIFA priced him out of the lower bowl. The pricing model turned his passion into a revenue variable. The consulate system nearly stopped him at the door, and none of it managed to extract the thing that made him travel 11 hours to be there. You cannot dynamically price a man's love for his country. That is the reward, not a trophy, not a lower bowl seat, not a hotel room with a view. The reward is the proof, proven in a scream, in a stranger's arms, in row 31, that the thing they were trying to commodify cannot be commodified, that the soul of this sport is not a line item. But here is what should concern every person who genuinely loves this sport. What happened at the 2026 World Cup is not an anomaly, it is a template. With 2030 confirmed across 6 countries and 3 continents, Spain, Portugal, Morocco, Argentina, Uruguay, Paraguay, the extraction model pioneered in North America is being packaged and exported. The system doesn't disappear after the final whistle in New Jersey. It iterates, it learns. It arrives in Madrid and Casablanca with sharper edges and 4 more years of data behind it. The man in row 31 won his moment. But the system is still running. It is already preparing for the next tournament, the next pricing engine, the next wave of visa applications that will be processed and denied before a single match is played. Formula One asked itself the same question too late. It spent decades transforming from a raw, dangerous, deeply human spectacle into a luxury lifestyle brand. The revenues became extraordinary, the broadcast became beautiful, and something in the soul of the sport quietly left the building and never fully came back. Football is the last sport on earth with genuine global democratic roots, where a kid from a Nairobi slum and a kid from suburban Amsterdam grow up worshiping the same players, speaking the same language of last-minute equalizers and impossible saves. That took 150 years to build. It is considerably easier to dismantle than it was to construct. FIFA can own the stadiums, the broadcast rights, the pricing architecture that turned a $100 ticket into a $3,000 one without a single human making a conscious decision. They can own almost everything this sport produces. But in row 31, a man who slept in a car is crying because his country just scored. That moment belongs to no corporation, no pricing model, no board of directors that has ever drawn breath. They can sell the seats. They cannot buy the soul. And that is precisely why we are here. Because for every rejected visa application and every fan sleeping in a parking lot somewhere between a dream and a scandal, there is a story worth telling. These are the stories that deserve to be followed. Subscribe to the Lifted Cup, because as long as there are people willing to sell their motorcycles and scream until they lose their voices in row 31, the beautiful game still has a heartbeat, and we will never stop following it.